Sabbath to everyone out here. It's a blessing to be able to bring to you the Lord's word on another Sabbath day. And today's lesson is going to be about spiritual whoredom and how it relates to physical whoredom. Now, often the Lord, he refers to a lot of spiritual whoredom. He puts it in terms that we can understand. So he likens a lot of it to physical whoredom, just to let you know, like, for one, how we could better understand how he looks at it, how he looks at when you commit spiritual whoredom against him. So we can understand, like, the relation between the two. So now, spiritual whoredom in the Lord, as you can read all throughout this Bible, you know, it's basically worshiping other gods. That's the main thing. That's spiritual whoredom to the Lord, which Israel did a lot, okay? And which is the reason why we're over here speaking another language other than our original language, okay? And getting the bottom of the totem pole as a nation because of that. So, without me further talking, I'm going to get into the beginning of it in the law, where it says specifically, the Lord tells us not to have other gods before. So we're going to go into Exodus 20, and we're going to read Exodus 20, verses 3, 4, and 5. Okay, Exodus 20, verses 3, 4, and 5. So when you get there, brother, go ahead.
Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me.
Okay, so stop. So verse 3, the Lord tells you, thou shalt not have any other gods before me. Verse 4, he tells you, thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image of any likeness of anything that is in the heaven above, the earth, or the water. So that means we're not to make any graven image or any likeness of anything. And then verse 5 tells us not to bow down to them or serve them, because he, the Lord, is a jealous God. Okay? Visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children until the third and fourth generation that hate him. So basically, the Lord is letting you know not to have any other gods before him. Don't make any graven images of anything. And definitely don't bow down and pray to him. Okay? Because he's jealous. He hates that. Okay? So now we're going to go into where, because a lot of times when Israel made a vow, they made a covenant with the Lord that they would be his people and that they would agree and that they would not do this. Okay? And of course, they went back on what they said. So we're going to go into Exodus 19, and we're going to read where Israel established themselves as a people with God, okay, through Moses, okay, and the covenant that they made with the Lord, okay. So we're going to go into Exodus 19, and we're going to read verses 3 through 8, okay. And let me see, hold on. Okay, we're going to start at verse 3. And we're going to end at verse 8. So, when you get there, brother, go ahead.
And Moses went up unto God, and the Lord called unto him out of the mountain, saying, Thus shalt say to this house of Jacob, and tell the children of Israel, Ye have seen what I did unto the Egyptians, and how I bare you on eagle's wings, and brought you unto myself. Now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then he shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. And ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests, and a holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. And Moses came and called for the elders of the people, and laid before their faces all these words which the Lord commanded him. And all the people answered together and said, All that the Lord has spoken, we will do. And Moses returned the words of the people unto the Lord.
Okay, now stop. So now this is when the Lord had led the children of Israel out of Egypt, okay, through the Exodus. And when he got to this mountain with them, this is where he basically pleaded with them, basically telling them if they will obey his voice and keep his covenant, then he'll make them a peculiar people unto him, and they shall be unto a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. This is what Israel was meant to be. This was the Lord's plan for his nation, for these people. Not just to pick us because he just favored us amongst everybody else, but he had a specific mission for us, a goal for us, okay? And so, verse 8 says, all the people answered together and said, all that the Lord has spoken we will do. And Moses returned the words of the people unto the Lord. So basically, right here is where Israel made a covenant with the Lord that they were going to obey him, that they were going to be his people. Everything that the Lord told them, Israel agreed to it. Okay? So now we're going to flip over to Ecclesiastes 5, and we're going to read about when you make a vow to the Lord. Okay? Which is what Israel did right here in Mount Sinai. So we're going to go to Ecclesiastes 5 and read verses 4 through 6. Let me get there. Ecclesiastes 5, verses 4 through 6. And when you get there, brother, go ahead.
When thou vowest a vow unto God, defer not to pay it, for he hath no pleasure in fools. Pay that which thou hast vowed. Better is it that thou shouldest not vow than thou shouldst vow and not pay. Suffer not thy mouth to cause thy flesh to sin. Neither say thou before the angel that it was an error. Wherefore should God be angry at thy voice and destroy the works of thy hands?
Okay, now we just read Ecclesiastes. Basically, it says that when you vow to God, defer not to pay it. Israel just made a vow to the Lord in Mount Sinai. Okay, it tells you he has no pleasure in fools. Better if you never made the vow than you make the vow and don't pay. That's very important to remember. Okay, keep that in mind. That Israel first, we made this covenant with the Lord, and then in Ecclesiastes where it says about making a vow to the Lord. Keep these things in mind as we go further, because then you're going to realize that Israel, it probably would have been better for them not to make a vow than to make a vow and do the stuff that they did. Okay? Verse 6 says, suffer not thy mouth to cause thy flesh to sin. Neither say thou before the angel that it was an error, wherefore God should be angry at thy voice and destroy the work of thy hand. Okay, so basically think before you speak. Okay? If you can't do it, don't get ahead of yourself and then say you can and then you can't live up to it. Go up to verse 2 real quick and read that real fast.
Be not rash with thy mouth, and let not thine heart be hasty to utter anything before God. For God is in heaven, and thou upon earth. Therefore let thy words be few.
Therefore think before you speak. Okay? So now we're going to get into where Israel first violated that vow that they made to the Lord in Exodus. It's going to be Exodus 32, verses 1 through 14. We're going to read that. So flip over to Exodus 32, verses 1 through 14. All right. And when you get there, brother, go ahead and start from the top of 32.
And when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down out of the mount, the people gathered themselves together unto Aaron and said unto him, Up, make us gods, which shall go before us. For as for this Moses, the man that brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we wot not what is become of him.
Okay, so stop. So this is when Moses was up in the mount dealing with the Lord. He was gone for a while. And so the children of Egypt, instead of children of Israel being patient, waiting for him, started getting impatient and then started to ask, like, wait, what's going on with Moses? Where is he? And so we're going to see what they did next. So continue with verse 2.
And Aaron said unto them, Break off the golden earrings which are in the ears of your wives, of your sons, and of your daughters, and bring them unto me. And all the people brake off the golden earrings which were in their ears, and brought them unto Aaron. And he received them at their hand, and fashioned it with a graving tool, after he had made it with a molten calf. And they said, These be thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt.
Okay, stop. Now, what do we read in Exodus 20 with the commandments? Didn't the Lord tell us not to make any graven images of anything that is on the earth, or the heaven, or the waters underneath? I believe that's what we read. And so now here we are. We have Israel asking Aaron, because they just don't have any more patience to wait for Moses, to break them off their earrings and make them gods. Okay, keep in mind, the Lord just delivered these people out of Egypt. Okay, after 400 years of bondage. Okay, split the Red Sea, put all these plagues on Pharaoh, everything. And it's like as soon as we get out and get a little impatient, then we just go back to the old ways. You know, and it's like, and we just read where God is a jealous God. So the question is, why would they do that? But the scriptures tell you Israel's stiff-necked, hard-hearted people. So it makes sense. It's still the same today. So go ahead and continue with verse 4.
And he received them at their hand, and fashioned it with a graving tool. And after he had made it a molten calf, they said, These be thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt. And when Aaron saw it, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made proclamation, and said, Tomorrow is a feast to the Lord. And they rose up early on the morrow, and offered burnt offerings, and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and to drink, and rose up to play.
Okay, and so now the people basically started, worshiping these false gods and everything that Aaron had made for him, which I don't understand why he didn't reject doing that for him, since he knows, but I don't know. But basically he did this, and so word gets back to the Lord, and so this is the Lord's reply when he heard about it. Verse number 7.
And the Lord said unto Moses, Go, get thee down, for thy people, which thou broughtest out of the land of Egypt, have corrupted themselves. They have turned aside quickly out of the way which I commanded them. They have made them a molten calf, and have worshipped it, and have sacrificed thereunto, and said, These be thy gods, O Israel, which I brought thee out of the land of Egypt. And the Lord said unto Moses, I have seen this people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people. Now therefore let me alone, that my wrath may wax hot against them, and that I may consume them, and I will make of thee a great nation.
Okay, so now at this point, the Lord is upset, because as we read, the Lord is a jealous God. He don't like you worshiping other gods other than him. Okay? And Israel did that. They turned aside quickly and started doing it. So then the Lord basically told Moses, step aside, that I may consume them, and I will make of thee a great nation. So in other words, he was willing to kill all of the nation of Israel and start over with Moses, okay? Because of what Israel was doing, because they were worshiping other gods. The Lord's jealousy is serious, okay? It's not a joke. If he's willing to kill off the whole nation of people that he just made a covenant because of that kind of transgression, think about it. You know what I mean? Do we really want to cross the Lord? Do we really want to be doing that? Because there's a lot of just idolatrous, false things, people worshiping everything these days. And if they read this and really understood how the Lord felt about it, I would pray that some of them turn away from it. But anyway, so we're going to continue with verse 11. Go ahead.
And Moses besought the Lord his God, and said, Lord, why does thy wrath wax hot against thy people, which thou hast brought forth out of the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand? Wherefore should the Egyptians speak and say, For mischief did he bring them out, to slay them in the mountains, and to consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from thy fierce wrath, and repent from this evil against thy people. Okay, so basically Moses had to talk to the Lord and talk him out of it and get him to see the other side of how it might be looked at if he did that. To where he says, Wherefore the Egyptians speak and say, For mischief did he bring them out, to slay them in the mountains, and consume them from the face of the earth. Okay, so Moses basically reasoned with the Lord and basically was just, advising him not to do that because of how it would look
to the Egyptians, and so that basically the message wouldn't be, it wouldn't be clear. So read 13 and 14.
Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, thy servants to whom thou swearest by thy own self, and says unto them, I will multiply your seed as the stars of heaven, and all this land that I have spoken of will I give unto their seed, and they shall inherit it forever. And the Lord repented of the evil which he thought to do unto his people.
Okay, so Lord obviously took heed to what Moses was saying, okay? And which says that, with certain situations, maybe you can reason with the Lord, and maybe he will hear you, because as we read right here, he heard Moses, okay? And so it says in 14, and the Lord repented of this evil which he thought to do unto his people, okay? So now, we're going to go into...
You want to read 15 and 16? No. 15 and 16? No.
Yeah, read 15 and 16. Go ahead.
Verse 15, and Moses turned and went down from the mount, and the two tables of testimony were in his hand, and the tables were written on both their sides, on the one side and on the other were they written. And the tables were the work of God, and the writing was the writing of God, graven upon the tables.
Okay, and so basically, this whole story, Israel started worshiping false gods. The Lord was going to kill them, start over again with Moses. Moses talked them out of it, and the Lord repented of the evil, therefore giving Israel another chance. Okay? So now we're going to go over to, we're going to go over to Hosea. And we're going to read verses 1 through 9. Hosea, the first chapter. We're going to read Hosea 1. We're going to read verses 1 through 9. All right, so when you get there, brother, go ahead.
The word of the Lord that came to Hosea, the son of Beeri, in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah, and in the days of Jeroboam, the son of Joash, king of Israel, the beginning of the word of the Lord by Hosea. And the Lord said to Hosea, Go, take unto thee a wife of whoredoms and children of whoredoms, for the land have committed great whoredom, departed from the Lord. So he went and took Gomer, the daughter of Diblaim, which conceived, and bare him a son. And the Lord said unto him, Call his name Jezreel, for yet a little while, and I will avenge the blood of Jezreel upon the house of Jehu, and will cause to cease the kingdom of the house of Israel. And it shall come to pass at that day that I will break the bow of Israel in the valley of Jezreel. And she conceived again and bare a daughter. And God said unto him, Call her name Lo Ruhamah, for I will no more have mercy upon the house of Israel, but I will utterly take them away. But I will have mercy upon the house of Judah, and will save them by the Lord their God, and will not save them by bow, nor by sword, nor by battle, by horses, nor by horsemen.
All right, now stop. So now in this particular chapter, this is where the Lord is kind of like equating like some physical whoredom with some spiritual whoredom. Like he's telling Hosea, go take him a wife of the whoredom of whoredoms and the children of whoredoms, for the land have committed great whoredom departing from the Lord. Okay? And so then he went and he took, these physical people, Gomer, daughter of this, and then the Lord told him that, and he gave him certain names that describe what I don't know, it's kind of hard for me to explain, but basically the whole basis is he's comparing this spiritual to some physical. So we'll just keep reading read verses 8 and 9.
Now when she had weaned Lo Ruhamah, she conceived and bare a son. Then said God, Call his name Lo-Ami, for ye are not my people, and I will not be your God.
Okay, so now we'll go over to Hosea 2 and read verses 2 to 13.
Plead with your mother, plead, for she is not my wife, neither am I her husband. Let her therefore put away her whoredoms out of her sight, and her adulteries from between her breasts, lest I strip her naked, and set her as in the day that she was born, and make her as a wilderness, and set her like a dry land, and slay her with thirst. And I will not have mercy upon her children, for they be the children of whoredoms, for their mother hath played the harlot. She that conceived them have done shamefully. For she said, I will go after my lovers that give me my bread and my water, my wool and my flax, my oil and my drink. Therefore, behold, I will hedge up thy ways with thorns, and make a wall that she shall not find her paths. And she shall follow after her lovers, but she shall not overtake them. And she shall seek them, but she shall not find them. Then she shall say, I will go and return to my first husband, for then was it better with me than now. For she did not know that I gave her corn and wine and oil, and multiplied her silver and gold, which they prepared for Baal. Therefore will I return and take away my corn in the time thereof, and my wine in the season thereof. And I will recover my wool and my flax given to cover her nakedness. And now will I discover her lewdness in the sight of her lovers, and none shall deliver her out of my hand. I will cause also all her mirth to cease, her feast days, her new moons, and her Sabbaths, and all her solemn feasts.
Okay, so this woman that he's talking about is Israel, basically. And he's talking about all the stuff he's going to do to her, and that he's not going to honor her feast days and new moon Sabbaths, none of her solemn feasts. This is all Israel he's talking about for their whoredoms that they committed. So we'll go over to, let's see, Hosea verses chapter 4, and we'll read 1 and 2.
Thank you. Hear the word of the Lord, you children of Israel. For the Lord have a controversy with the inhabitants of the land, because there is no truth, nor mercy, nor knowledge of God in the land. By swearing and lying and killing and stealing and committing adultery, they break out, and blood touches blood.
Okay, so the Lord's telling Israel right here that he has a controversy with the inhabitants of the land because there's no truth, no mercy, nor knowledge of God in the land. By swearing and lying and killing and stealing and committing adultery, they break out. Okay, and blood touches blood. So go down to verse number 6 and read from 6 to 14.
My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, because thou hast rejected knowledge. I will also reject thee, for thou shalt be no priest to me, seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy God. I will also forget thy children. As they were increased, so they sinned against me. Therefore will I change their glory into shame. They eat up the sin of my people, and they set their heart on their iniquity. And there shall be like people, like priests, and I will punish them for their ways, and reward them for their doings. For they shall eat and not have enough. They shall commit whoredom, and they shall not increase, because they have left off to take heed to the Lord. Whoredom and wine, and new wine, take away the heart. My people has counsel at their stocks, and their staff declare unto them, for the spirit of whoredoms have caused them to err, and they have gone a whoring from under their God. They sacrifice upon the tops of the mountains, and burn incense upon the hills, under oaks and poplars and elms, because the shadow thereof is good. Therefore your daughters shall commit whoredom, and your spouses shall commit adultery. I will not punish your daughters when they commit whoredom, nor your spouses when they commit adultery, for themselves are separated with whores, and they sacrifice with harlots. Therefore the people that do not understand shall fall.
So the Lord is telling them, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because they have rejected knowledge, he will also reject them, and they shall be more priests to him. Okay, drop down and says, for the spirit of whoredoms have caused them to err. and that they sacrifice upon the top of mountains and burn incense upon the hills, under oaks and poplars. And therefore he's telling them, because you guys do this, therefore your daughters shall commit whoredom, and your spouses shall commit adultery. And I will not punish your daughters when they commit whoredom, nor your spouses when they commit adultery. For themselves are separated with whores, and they sacrifice with harlots. Therefore the people that does not understand shall fall. So the Lord is basically telling them what he's going to do to them because of their spiritual whoredom towards him. Okay, and this is just another example of the Lord's jealousy and how he hates his people worshiping other gods. I mean, we're just going through the scriptures and just reading these different examples of what he says he's going to do, because of that, and spiritual whoredom. And it's just like when you, cheating on the Lord is like say your husband or your wife cheating on you. You know what I mean? Like, the average man, if he found his wife cheating on him, he'd be upset. He'd be really, really mad. He'd probably be ready to kill, either her or the guy she's cheating with, or maybe even both of them. Okay, so imagine the Lord's anger when you worship false gods and commit spiritual harm to him, and how upset he gets because of that. And his anger is 10 times worse, and his fury is way worse than any man could ever do. Okay? But this is how he looks at it, because Israel is the Lord's bride. Okay? Read that in other scriptures. So it's like the Lord being the husbandman, Israel being his bride, and his bride going out and worshiping other gods and giving the glory to those gods instead of the one and true and only God is equivalent to a man's wife going out sleeping with another dude and then blessing this dude with all her husband's stuff. You know what I'm saying? That her husband bought her, and then she's blessing him with it. You know what I'm saying? Got him up in the house, in her husband's house, sleeping around, lounging around with his feet off, watching TV, all that kind of stuff. It's going to be a big problem, okay? Any man who comes home and finds that out, it's going to be boiling hot, okay? Like, yeah, I know the commandments say thou shalt not kill, but some of that stuff's going to go out the door. If you came home and found out, or you even found out your wife was doing that stuff, you're going to want to kill one or the other, okay? Maybe even both of them. For me, I'm going for the woman first, okay? Because she knows better. But anyway, back to this. But then, once again, Israel being the wife, Lord's going to go after us. So, there you go. All right. So,
that's a good analogy right there.
So with that being said, we're going to flip over to
It's cold out here. Hey. But, man, great analogy. If it's real, if we like that, how much greater is the Lord's anger and wrath itself?
Right. So imagine what he wants to do to us.
Yeah. Look what he's done.
Man.
Look around, dog.
Exactly.
Man. Exactly. Out here. Come on now.
Exactly.
Fish market down there. And all the rich folks over there behind that building.
And so we're going to go over to Jeremiah 2, and we're going to read verse 11, then we're going to skip down to 19 and 20. Okay? So Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 11, and we're going to skip down to 19 and 20. When you get there, brother, go ahead.
Hath a nation changed their gods, which are yet no gods? But my people have changed their glory for that which does not profit.
Okay, so verse 11 says, has the nation changed their gods, which are yet no gods? But my people have changed their glory for that which does not profit. Because other nations, at least when they worship false gods, they, their gods, which are false, they stick to those gods. We'll turn in our God for some other gods that don't even exist. Real quick. So with that, skip on down to 19 and 20.
Thine own wickedness shall correct thee, and thy black sidings shall reprove thee. Know therefore, and see that it is an evil thing and bitter, and thou hast forsaken the Lord thy God, and that my fear is not in thee, saith the Lord God of hosts. For of an old time I have broken thy yoke, and burst thy bands, and thou sayest, I will not transgress. When upon every high hill and under every green tree thou wanderest, playing the harlot.
So basically, the Lord is basically telling Israel, you know what? For all the time I've broken your yoke, burst your bands. Basically, I took you out of Egypt, did all this stuff for you, and you say you won't transgress, but then again, I catch you upon every high hill and every green tree, thou wanderest playing the harlot. Okay? So basically, Israel, you lied to me. You know what I'm saying? You said that that you were not going to transgress against me, and then here you are doing this. So basically, it's the Lord just telling Israel, you playing the whore. You know what I'm saying? Upon every high hill, every green tree, playing the harlot. And he doesn't like that. He told you, for thy own wickedness, your own wickedness shall correct thee, and your backsliding shall reprove thee. Know therefore and see that it is an evil thing and bitter that thou hast forsaken the Lord thy God. For those of you who don't know what forsaken means, it means abandoned. Okay? You've abandoned the Lord your God, and then his fear is not in you. Obviously, because you're holding around with different gods. So he says, and my fear is not in thee, says the Lord God of hosts. So we're gonna go continue in Jeremiah 2, and we are going to go over to 23 and read verses 23 through 29. So Jeremiah 2, verses 23 through 29, when you get there, Trey, go ahead.
How canst thou say, I am not polluted? I have not gone after Baalim. See thy way in the valley. Know what thou hast done. Thou art a swift dromedary traversing her ways, a wild ass used to the wilderness, that snuffeth up the wind at her pleasure. In her occasion, who can turn her away? All they that seek her will not weary themselves. In her month they shall find her. Withhold thy foot from being unshod, and thy throat from thirst. But thou sayest, there is no hope. No, for I have loved strangers, and after them will I go. As the thief is ashamed when he is found, so is the house of Israel ashamed. They, their kings, their princes, and their priests, and their prophets, saying to a stock, thou art my father, and to a stone, thou hast brought me forth. For they have turned their back unto me, and not their face. But in the time of their trouble they will say, arise and save us. But where are thy gods that thou hast made thee? Let them arise, if they can save thee in the time of thy trouble. For according to the number of thy cities are thy gods of Judah. Wherefore will ye plead with me? Ye have transgressed against me, saith the Lord.
Okay, so the Lord is basically telling them that, Israel has shamed themselves by the gods that they chose to worship. Basically telling them, saying to the stock, thou art my father, and to a stone, thou hast brought me forth. But they have turned their back unto me and their face. But also let them know, but in the time of their trouble, they'll say, arise and save us. And Lord's basically letting them know, where are the gods that you shamed yourself with, that you left me for in your time of need? Like, where are they at? You know what I'm saying? Like, where are the gods that they made? Let them arise and let them save you. You know what I'm saying? It's just like once again, wife goes cheats on her husband and then tries to come back to him. It's like, nah, you know what? You're all cozy with this dude over here, doing this, living it up. Now he don't want you no more. Now you want to come back to me. Let him take care of you. You know what I'm saying? Let him help you out. Let him do all the stuff that I was doing for you that you took for granted. But Lord is a lot more forgiving than man. Man can be this forgiving too, but for the most part, men and women are usually not that forgiving. But the Lord's forgiveness is above all of ours. And so that's always the example we need to be, despite what we go through, you know, especially with our spouses or whatever. So just want to point that out. But basically, he's basically saying to him, where are your gods that you have made? You know, let them arise. They can save thee in thy time of trouble, for according to the number of thy cities are thy gods. So that means, according to the number of cities that Judah had, they had a god for each city. That is crazy. Okay? So he tells you in 29, wherefore will you plead with me? Ye have all transgressed against me. Okay? So go ahead and let's see. Go ahead and skip down 32, read 32. Read 32.
Can a maid forget her ornaments, or a bride her attire? Yet my people have forgotten me days without number.
So he says his people have forgotten him days without number. Okay? Think about that. Days without number. Okay? So that means there's been a whole lot of days that you have forgot about the Lord. So many days that you can't even number. This is how long they were doing it. This is how long they've been worshiping just these false gods and just playing the whore. Days without number. Okay? Think about that. So, all right, so now we'll flip over to Jeremiah 3. And we'll read verses 1 through 3. And then skip down to 6 to 14. So Jeremiah 3, verses 1 through 3. And when you get there, brother, go ahead.
They say, if a man put away his wife, and she go from him, and become another man's, shall he return unto her again? Shall not that land be greatly polluted? But thou hast played the harlot with many lovers. Yet return again to me, saith the Lord. Lift up thy eyes unto the high places, and see where thou hast not been lying with. And the ways hast thou set for them, as the Arabian and the wilderness, and thou hast polluted the land with thy whoredoms and with thy wickedness. Therefore the showers have been withholden, and there have been no latter rain, and thou hast a whore's forehead, thou refusest to be ashamed.
So the Lord is asking him, say if a man put away his wife, and she go from him, become another man, shall he return her again? Shall not that land be greatly polluted? And he's letting Israel know, you have played the harlot with many lovers. Yet again, yet return. But yet the Lord is still saying, return to me. In other words, he's still letting Israel know, even though you've done this, return to me. You know, we can make this right. You know, he said, lift up thine eyes to the high places and see where thou hast not been lying. In the ways that thou sat for them as Abraham, as the Arabian in the wilderness, and thou hast polluted the land with thy whoredoms and with thy wickedness. And he tells me in verse 3, therefore the showers have been withholden, and there have been no latter rain. And thou hast played the whore's forehead, thou refusest to be ashamed. So because Israel has played the whore, the Lord has, you know, neglected the showers, withhold the showers from them, and there's been no latter rain. You know, basically, he's punishing Israel in different ways for their whoredoms. Okay, so skip down to verse 6 and read from 6 to 14.
The Lord said also unto me in the days of Josiah the king, hast thou seen that which blacksiding Israel have done? She is gone up upon every high mountain and under every green tree, and there have played the harlot. And I said, after she had done all these things, turn thou unto me, but she returned not. And her treacherous sister Judah saw it. And I said, my bad, and I saw when for all the causes whereby blacksidings Israel committed adultery, I have put her away and given her a bill of divorce. Yet her treacherous sister Judah feared not, but went and played the harlot also. And it came to pass through the lightness of her whoredom that she defiled the land and committed adultery with stones and with stocks.
Okay, so now the Lord is saying that for the causes whereby backsliding Israel committed adultery, he would put her away, give her a bill of divorcement. And you would think that her sister Judah will see this and fear, but it says that her treacherous sister feared not and went play the harlot also. So it came to pass in the likeness of her whoredom that she defiled the land and committed adultery with stones and stock. So Judah is doing the same thing as Israel. You know what I mean? The whole land is defiled with whore. You know, Israel is just playing the whore all throughout the land of Israel, both the northern and southern kingdom. Okay? And so then he says in, verse 7, after all that she had done, after all these things that she had done, and he's still telling Israel, to turn to him, turn back to him. But she won't. And, like I said, Judah followed suit with Israel. So go ahead, continue with verse 10.
And yet, for all this, her treacherous sister Judah have not turned unto me with her whole heart, but vainly, saith the Lord. And the Lord said unto me, the blacksiding Israel have justified herself more than the treacherous Judah. Go and proclaim these words toward the north, and say, return, thou blacksiding Israel, saith the Lord, and I will not cause my anger to fall upon you. For I am merciful, saith the Lord, and I will not keep anger forever. Only acknowledge thy iniquity, that thou hast transgressed against the Lord thy God, and hast scattered thy ways to the strangers under every green tree, and ye have not obeyed my voice, saith the Lord. Turn, O backsliding children, saith the Lord, for I am married unto you, and I will take you one of a city and two of a family, and I will bring you to Zion.
Okay, so even after all that whoredom that Israel and Judah have been doing, the Lord is still telling them, turn back to him. You know what I mean? Because he's married to them. Okay? This is a loyal husband right here. Okay? Because I don't know how many real husbands, like human husbands, would be so quick to take their wife back after she slept and committed whoredoms with a bunch of men.
The world.
That would be a very hard thing to do. Okay? Even for a woman, if she had a husband who was out there sleeping around, doing all this stuff, just sleeping around with just random women back and forth, how easy would it be for her to accept her husband back? Like with us, it's, when we get hurt, it's a really hard thing to forgive. But obviously, we see where the Lord is merciful and he forgives, because he tells you that in verse number 12, I am merciful, saith the Lord, and I will not keep my anger forever. All he's saying is, just Israel, acknowledge that you've been playing the hoe, that you've been whoring around, and come back to me. Okay? I'm married to you. You can make this right. Just acknowledge you've been doing that, please. And so, but unfortunately for mankind, it's not always that easy, because you can admit to your wife or your husband, hey, I've been doing this, please forgive me. And it, it can go either way. They might forgive you, but even if they forgive you, they ain't gonna forget. Okay, so you might have to go through some hell for a while, emotionally, because of it. But that's the price you pay for cheap. So Israel ain't no different.
Right.
So with that being said, we'll skip over to verses 18 to 20. Okay, Jeremiah 3, verses 18 through 20.
In those days, the house of Judah shall walk with the house of Israel, and they shall come together out of the land of the north to the land that I have given for an inheritance unto your fathers. But I said, how should I put thee among the children, and give thee a pleasant land, a goodly heritage of the host of nations? And I said, thou shalt call me my father, and shalt not turn away from me. Surely as a wife treacherously departed from her husband, so have ye dealt treacherously with me, O house of Israel, saith the Lord.
Okay, so basically the Lord just made it clear right here, the comparison. Surely as a wife treacherously departed from her husband, so you have treacherously with me, O house of Israel, saith the Lord. So the Lord just makes this, I'm just going through these scriptures just to show you the different ways how the Lord always compares spiritual whoredom with physical whoredom. You see what I'm saying? So that way it can be clear that when you start going off and you start worshiping other gods, or you start following other false religions that have false gods and idols, just remember that's you cheating on the Lord when you do that. Okay? Like that scripture says, you can't, in Matthew, you cannot serve God and mammon. You can't do both. It's either got to be one or the other. So just keep that in mind. So we're going to flip over to Judges chapter 2 and read verses 1 through 8. And this is going to be another example of Israel doing what they do.
You said Judges what?
Judges chapter 2.
Oh, God, I see. That's it. Got it.
All right, so Judges chapter 2, verses 1 through 8. When you get there, go ahead.
And an angel of the Lord came up from Gilgal to Bochim and said, I made you to go up out of Egypt, and have brought you unto the land which I swear unto your fathers, and I have said, I will never break my covenant with you. And ye shall make no league with the inhabitants of this land. Ye shall throw down their altars, but ye shall not obey my voice. But ye have not obeyed my voice. Why have ye done this? Well,
so therefore, the Lord's basically angel of the Lord came up from Gilgal to Bochim and said, basically told Israel, he made you to go up out of Egypt and brought you into a land which I swear to your forefathers. And Israel said, I will never break my covenant with you. And the Lord told them not to make any league with the inhabitants of this land. He told them to throw down their altars. But of course, Israel did not obey this. So now he's asking, why have you done this? Verse number 3.
Wherefore I also said, I will not drive them out from before you, but they shall be as thorns in your sides, and their God shall be a snare unto you. And it came to pass, when the angel of the Lord spake these words unto all the children of Israel, that the people lifted up their voice and wept. And they called the name of that place Bochim, and they sacrificed there unto the Lord. And when Joshua had let the people go, the children of Israel went unto every man unto his inheritance to possess the land. And the people served the Lord all the days of Joshua, and all the days of the elders that outlived Joshua, who had seen all the great works of the Lord that he did for Israel. And Joshua, the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died, being 110 years old.
Okay, so now, after verse number 2, Lord asks, why have you done this? And then he also told them, because of that, because you guys haven't done what I told you to, I will not drive them out from before you. But they shall be as thorns in your sides, and their God shall be a snare unto you. Okay, so this is another kind of punishment that the Lord is putting on Israel for their disobedience. Okay, he's saying that now because you did not tear down their altars and you made a league with these people, because you did not obey my voice, he said, I won't drive them out from the land before you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to make them be a thorn in your side, and then their gods that you want to worship should be a snare unto you. Okay? So, with that being said, start reading at 10 down to 21.
And also all that generation were gathered unto their fathers, and there arose another generation after them, which knew not the Lord, nor yet the works which he had done for Israel. And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and served Baalim. And they forsook the Lord, God of their fathers, which brought them out of the land of Egypt, and followed other gods, of the gods of the people that were round about them, and bowed themselves unto them, and provoked the Lord to anger. And they forsook the Lord, and served Baal, and Asherah. And the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel, and he delivered them into the hands of the spoilers that spoiled them. And he sold them into the hands of their enemies round about, so that they could not longer stand before their enemies. Whithersoever they went out, the hand of the Lord was against them for evil, as the Lord has said, and as the Lord has sworn unto them, and they were greatly distressed. Nevertheless, the Lord raised up judges, which delivered them out of the hand of those that spoiled them. And yet they would not hearken unto the judges, but there went a whoring after other gods, and bowed themselves unto them. They turned quickly out of the way which their fathers walked in, obeying the commandments of the Lord. But they did not so. And when the Lord raised them up judges, then the Lord was with the judge, and delivered them out of the hand of their enemies all the days of the judge. For it repented the Lord because of their groanings by reason of them that oppressed them and vexed them. And it came to pass, when the judge was dead, that they returned and corrupted themselves more than their fathers, and in following other gods to serve them and to bow down unto them, they ceased not from their own doings, nor from their stubborn way.
Okay, so now this generation is worse than the last. Because the last generation, they knew the Lord, they just didn't listen to him. But this generation, it says, this generation, and there it says which they knew not the Lord, nor yet the works which he had done for Israel. And that generation did evil on the side of the Lord, serving Baal and Ashtaroth, and the Lord's anger was kindled against them. And like he did with us, he sold them to the hands of their enemies round about, so they can no longer stand before their enemies. And then whatsoever they went out, the hand of the Lord was against them for evil, as the Lord has said, and as the Lord has sworn unto them, and then they were greatly distressed. And so now this generation that was worse than the other one, they go off, they do evil on the side of the Lord. Lord puts them in the hand of their enemies. So now, but it says in 16, nevertheless, the Lord raised up judges which delivered them out of the hands that spoiled them. So here's the Lord showing mercy on them. Okay? Showing mercy on them. After they deliberately been worshiping false gods, and he put this evil on them, and he still showed mercy on them. And in 17 says, yet they still will not hearken to their judges. Still went a horn after other gods. Okay? And bowed themselves unto them, and turned themselves quickly out of the way of their that their fathers had walked in, not obeying the commandments of the Lord. And even when those judges were passed away, it says in 19, when the judge was dead, they turned and corrupted themselves more than their fathers, and following other gods to serve them and to bow down to them. They ceased not from their own doing, nor from their stubborn way. No matter how many chances the Lord gives Israel, Israel still returns to the same way. I mean, the Lord did evil. He put them in the hand of their enemies, then raised up judges to try and deliver them from it. And then after that judge is dead, they still go back doing the same thing. I mean, how many times can we just say hard-headed? You know what I mean? Just a stiff-necked, hard-headed people we are. So, that being said, I'm going to give you another example. So we're going to go to Judges 3, next chapter, and we're going to read 5 through 11.
And the children of Israel dwelt among the Canaanites, Hittites, and Amorites, and Perizzites, and Hivites, and Jebusites. And they took their daughters to be their wives, and gave their daughters to their sons, and served their gods. And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and forgot the Lord their God, and served Baalim in the groves.
Okay, now here's another example of Israel turning around doing the same thing again. Okay? He said they dwelt among the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, took daughters to be their wives, gave their daughters to their sons, served their gods. And the Lord specifically told Israel not to do that with the inhabitants of the land, for fear that they would turn their heart away from him and serve other gods. Israel goes ahead, and it's like one ear and out the other. And so it says 7, and the children of Israel did evil on the sight of the Lord, and forgot Lord their God, and served Baalim in the groves. So now, read verse 8, see how the Lord felt about that.
Therefore, the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel, and he sold them into the hand of Cushan Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia, and the children of Israel served Cushan Rishathaim 8 years.
Okay, so now the anger of the Lord was kindled hot again, and he put them in the hand of these people in Mesopotamia. Okay, and the children of Israel served them 8 years. So basically, he put them in bondage with these people. And so now what happens in verse 9? Go ahead.
And when the children of Israel cried unto the Lord raised up a deliverer to the children of Israel.
Oh, stop. So once again, Israel cries out to the Lord again to deliver. Once again, Lord, we don't like this. Please save us. Even though what you're getting right now is your just due for the evil that you've been doing against the Lord, but then you still got the nerve to cry out to him to come and save you. Wow. Keep going.
Verse 9. And when the children of Israel cried unto the Lord raised up a deliverer to the children of Israel, who delivered them, even Othniel, the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother. And the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he judged Israel, and went out to war, and the Lord delivered Cushan Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia, into his hand, and his hand prevailed against Cushan Rishathaim. And the land had rest 40 years, and Othniel, the son of Kenaz, died.
Okay, so the Lord raised up Othniel, the son of Kenaz, to deliver Israel from the hand of the Cushan Rishathaim, the king of Mesopotamia. Okay, so then after Othniel did this, then the land had rest for 40 years, and Othniel, the son of Kenaz, died. So now you would think, okay, this is twice the Lord has delivered Israel. Okay, after they've been committing spiritual whoredom against the Lord, and the Lord has been giving them a righteous judgment, and they cry to the Lord, and the Lord delivers them. So you would think, okay, first time, second time, maybe we should stop, right? Maybe we should just hearken to the Lord. Don't seem like that's the case. Continue in Judges 3, verses 12 through 15.
And the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of the Lord. And the Lord strengthened Eglon, the king of Moab, against Israel, because they had done evil in the sight of the Lord.
So here it is again, Israel back to their old ways, doing evil in the sight of the Lord again. Okay? And this time the Lord strengthened Eglon, the king of Moab, against Israel, because of the evil that they had done in the sight of the Lord, which is spiritual whoredom, serving other gods. Okay? So continue verse 13.
And he gathered unto him the children of Ammon and Amalek, and went and smote Israel, and possessed the city of palm trees. So the children of Israel served Eglon, the king of Moab, 18 years. But when the children of Israel cried unto the Lord...
Oh, there we go again. Children of Israel crying to the Lord again. Okay? After they done sinned, and the Lord put a righteous judgment on them, and then here they go again. It's just like a revolving door. Go ahead.
The Lord raised him up a deliverer, Ehud, the son of Gera, a Benjamite, a man left-handed, and by him the children of Israel sent a present unto Eglon, the king of Moab. But Ehud made him a dagger, which had 2 edges of a cubit length, and he did gird it under his raiment upon his right thigh. And he brought the present unto Eglon, king of Moab, and Eglon was a very fat man.
All right, so this time, like I said, the Lord raised up Ehud, the son of Gera, a Benjamite, a left-handed man, to deliver the children of Israel from Eglon, the king of Moab. This time, okay? So now skip down to 29, verses 29, and read through 31.
And they slew of Moab at that time about 10,000 men, all lusty, and all men of valor, and they escaped not a man. So Moab was subdued that day under the hand of Israel, and the land had rest 80 years. And after him was Shamgar, the son of Anath, which slew the Philistines 600 men with an ox guard, and he also delivered Israel.
So the Lord sent a couple of deliverers to Israel in this time. And now keep in mind, Lord, you didn't have to do this. I mean, technically Israel's judgment was righteous. Technically he probably shouldn't have did it, but he did because the Lord is merciful. It says He won't keep his anger forever. Okay? So now, we're going to go into Judges 4, and we're going to read verses 1 through 5.
And the children of Israel again did evil in the sight of the Lord when Ehud was dead.
So now this is like the 4th time that Israel's done evil in the sight of the Lord again. Okay? And what did the Lord do this time? Verse number 2.
And the Lord sold them into the hand of Jabin, king of Canaan, that reigned in Hazor, the captain of whose host was Sisera, which dwelt in Hazarah of the Gentiles. And the children of Israel cried unto the Lord, for he had 900 chariots of iron. In 20 years he mightily oppressed the children of Israel.
There goes Israel crying again, crying to the Lord once again. Go ahead. Continue.
And Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lepidot, she judged Israel at that time. And she dwelt under the palm tree of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel and Mount Ephraim. And the children of Israel came up to her for judgment.
All right, now skip down to 23 and 24.
So God subdued on that day Jabin, the king of Canaan, before the children of Israel. And the hand of the children of Israel prospered and prevailed against Jabin, the king of Canaan, and until they had destroyed Jabin, the king of Canaan.
Okay, so Lord delivered them once again. Okay, and so now we'll flip over to Judges chapter 6, and we'll read verses 1 through 8.
And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the hand of the Midian 7 years.
Okay, stop. How many times do we have to keep reading about Israel doing evil in the sight of the Lord again? Doesn't it seem like this is repetitious? The same thing over and over and over again? Now, can you understand why we're here in modern day 2021 in this country, in the condition we're in, speaking another language, and half of us not even knowing God like how our forefathers knew him? They just chose not to obey him. But we have to find out even harder now how to serve the Lord than they did back then, because we've been so separated and so far off. The curses have just done a toll on us. But after reading all this, can you now understand why Israel is under the curses that we are? Can you now understand why we are in the condition we are as a people? Being stubborn and hard-headed, and we're still the same. All right, so read verse number 2.
And the hand of Midian prevailed against Israel, and because of the Midianites, the children of Israel made them dens which are in the mountains and caves and strongholds. And so it was, when Israel had sown, that the Midianites came up, and the Amalekites and the children of the east, even they came up against them. And they encamped against them, and destroyed the increase of the earth, till thou came into Gaza, and left no sustenance for Israel, neither sheep, nor ox, nor ass. For they came up with their cattle and their tents, and they came as grasshoppers for multitude. For both they and their camels were without number, and they entered into the land to destroy it. And Israel was greatly impoverished, because of the Midianites, and the children of Israel cried unto the Lord. And it came to pass, when the children of Israel cried unto the Lord because of the Midianites, that the Lord sent a prophet unto the children of Israel, which said unto them, Thus said the Lord God of Israel, I brought you from Egypt, and brought you from out of the house of bondage.
All right, now stop. So now, once again, the Lord delivers the children of Israel into the hand of the Midianites, and then Israel once again cries out for the Lord, and then the Lord sends them a prophet, to deliver him out of the hands of the Midianites. And so now skip down to verse number 11.
And there came an angel of the Lord and sat under an oak, which was in Ophrah, that pertained unto Joash the Abiezrite, and his son Gideon threshed wheat by the winepress to hide it from the Midianites. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto him, and said unto him, The Lord is with thee, thou mighty man of valor. And Gideon said unto him, O my Lord, if the Lord be with us, why then is all this befallen us? And where be all his miracles which our fathers told us of, saying, Did not the Lord bring us up from Egypt? But now the Lord has forsaken us and delivered us into the hands of the Midianites.
Stop. I cannot believe they have the nerve to ask this question. Oh my Lord, if the Lord be with us, why then is all this befalling us? And where be all his miracles which our fathers told of us, saying, did not the Lord bring us from Egypt? But now the Lord has forsaken us and delivered us into the hands of the Midianites. Duh! Because you keep sinning against him. Keep doing the same thing over and over again. Wow. All right, verse 14.
And the Lord looked upon him and said, go in this thy might, and thou shalt save Israel from the hand of the Midianites. Have not I sent thee? And he said unto him, O my Lord, wherewith shall I save Israel? Behold, my family is poor in Manasseh.
All right, go ahead, skip down to 28, verse 28.
Verse 28. And when the men of the city arose early in the morning, behold, the altar of Baal was cast down, and the grove was cut down that was by it. And the second bullock was offered upon the altar that was built.
Okay, so now this time, the end result is, they cast down the altar of Baal, was cast down, and the grove was cut down by it, and the second bullock was offered upon the altar that they was built. So now for the time being, it seems like Israel, is coming around and, doing what they're supposed to do now. But we're going to flip over to, let's see, Judges chapter 8, and we're going to read verses 33 through 35. So now, keep in mind, now things are good right now in Israel. Seems like Israel's obeying, doing what they're supposed to be doing. But read verse 33.
And it came to pass, as soon as Gideon was dead, that the children of Israel turned again, and went a whoring after Baalim, and made Baal Berith their God. And the children of Israel remembered not the Lord their God, who delivered them out of the hand of all their enemies on every side, neither showed they kindness to the house of Jerubbaal, namely Gideon, according to all the goodness which he had showed unto Israel.
So now, once Gideon was dead, children of Israel turned right back again, went back a whoring after Balaam, and made Baal Berith their God. And they remembered not the Lord their God, who delivered them out of their hands, of all the enemies on every side, neither did they show any kindness to the house of Jerubbaal, according to all the goodness which he has showed Israel. All the goodness he showed Israel, and this is the payment he gets after he dies. They just flip back, turn back to their old ways, and don't even acknowledge it. I mean, man, if the average person reading this would just be done with Israel. You know what I mean? Like this is an example of how merciful the Lord is. Because the average person would be done to somebody after all this. I mean, done, just like the heck with you. But the Lord still shows us his mercy. He still gives us that chance. But best believe we don't start listening and taking heed. I mean, he's almost coming. And we're in the last days. He's getting fed up with a lot of this. And it's going to come a time where he's going to separate wheat and tares, and just basically he's not going to have the patience for any of this foolishness anymore. So now would be the time to turn, But we'll flip over to Judges 10. And we'll read verses 6 through 7.
And the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of the Lord, and served Baalim and Asherah, and the gods of Syria, and the gods of Zidon, and the gods of Moab, and the gods of the children of Ammon, and the gods of the Philistines, and forsook the Lord, and served not him. And the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel, and he sold them into the hands of the Philistines, into the hands of the children of Ammon.
See, so now once again, Israel, they do evil in the sight of the Lord again. This time he turns them over to the hands of the Philistines. All right, skip down to verse number 10 and read 10 through 16.
And the children of Israel cried unto the Lord, saying, we have sinned against thee, both because we have forsaken our God, and also served Baalim. And the Lord said unto the children of Israel, Did not I deliver you from the Egyptians and from the Amorites, from the children of Ammon, and from the Philistines, the Zidonians also, and the Amalekites, and the Moabites did oppress you. And ye cried to me, and I deliver you out of their hand. Yet ye have forsaken me, and served other gods, wherefore I deliver you no more. Go and cry unto the gods which you have chosen. Let them deliver you in the time of your tribulation. And the children of Israel said unto the Lord, we have sinned. Do thou unto us whatsoever seemeth good unto thee. Deliver us only, we pray thee this day. And they put away the strange gods from among them, and served the Lord, and his soul was grieved for the misery of Israel.
So now in this verse right here, in this chapter, it seems like the Lord was fed up. Finally fed up. Verse 13, he says, yeah, you have forsaken me and served other gods, wherefore I will deliver you no more. Okay? Go and cry unto the gods which you have chosen. Let them deliver you in the time of your tribulation. And so Israel, once again, they confessed that they sinned, and they put away the strange gods from among them, served the Lord, and his soul was grieved for the misery of Israel. But then it's like, but for how long then? For how long until we turn around and do it again? You know what I mean? Man. So, with that being said, let's flip over to Judges chapter 13. So Judges chapter 13, and we're going to read 1 through 5.
And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the hand of the Philistines 40 years.
Okay, so Israel doing evil on the side of the Lord again. Delivered them to the hand of the Philistines for 40 years. Okay, so now read verse number 2.
And there was a certain man of Zorah, of the family of the Danites, whose name was Manoah, and his wife was barren and bare not. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto the woman, and said unto her, Behold, now thou art barren, and bearest not, but thou shalt conceive, and bear a son. Now therefore beware, I pray thee, and drink not wine, nor strong drink, and eat not any unclean thing. For lo, thou shalt conceive, and bear a son, and no razor shall come on his head, for the child shall be called a Nazarite unto God from the womb. And he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines.
Okay, so now this particular person, deliverer, that's going to deliver the hand out of the Philistines is Samson. Okay, this gets into the story of Samson. Okay, but we're not going to go through all that just for time's sake. So we're going to skip over to Hosea chapter 8, verses 1 through 5. Now, for most of us know the story of Samson. And so if you ever want to read that on your own, that's Judges 13. You can read that whole thing. But basically, at the end of that story, Samson ended up delivering the children of Israel from the Philistines, destroying the Philistines and himself along with them. Okay? So that's how that story ended. So we'll go to Hosea chapter 8 and read verses 1 through 5.
Set the trumpet to thy mouth. He shall come as an eagle against the house of the Lord, because they have transgressed my covenant and trespassed against my law. Israel shall cry unto me, my God, we know thee. Israel hath cast off the thing that is good. The enemy shall pursue him. They have set up kings, but not by me. They have made princes, and I knew it not. Of their silver and their gold have they made them idols, that they may be cut off. Thy calf, O Samaria, hath cast thee off. My anger is kindled against thee. How long will it be ere that they attain to innocency?
Okay, so now the Lord is basically saying, they have set up kings, but not by me. They have made princes, but I knew it not. Of their silver and their gold, they have made them idols. They need to be cut off. Okay, so now the Lord's talking about cutting them off because of idolatry. The calf, O Samaria, cut thee off. My anger is kindled against thee. Okay, so now the Lord's talking about cutting them off for the spiritual whoredom, for the idolatry that they did. Says the Lord started to get fed up. So go down to verse number 8.
Israel is swallowed up. Now shall they be among the Gentiles as a vessel wherein is no pleasure.
Oh, okay. So now it's talking about, like the curses say in Deuteronomy. You know, you're going to go to a place that a land that your forefathers never knew. You're going to worship their gods. You know, basically their customs and everything. And right here, he's telling you now they're going to be among the Gentiles. Okay, so it's like it's not good enough that I spread you among all these other nations around you and made you captive under them. It's not good enough that, you know, he spread Israel captive amongst all the other lands around him because they still just kept doing the same thing over and over again. So now he's got to put us even farther. Now he's got to put us amongst the people that we don't know at all. You know what I'm saying? That we don't have a clue about any of their language, their customs, or nothing. And these are people that are not going to be kind to us at all. You know what I'm saying? We're going to go through some really hard times being amongst these people. Okay? But this is all because of disobedience. This is all because of spiritual whoredom against the Lord. Okay? This is all because of idolatry. Okay? This is the main reason why we are over here. Like Deuteronomy chapter 28 says, you know, if you don't hearken to the Lord to do all his laws and statutes, then he's going to scatter you. That's exactly what he did. You know, he scattered us amongst nations. He put us amongst nations that were around us, and then he scattered us even further to nations that our forefathers never even knew. Nations that we probably, some of us never even knew existed. But that's pretty much what that is. And so, flip over Hosea chapter 9 and read verses 1 through 5.
Rejoice not, O Israel, for joy as other people, for thou hast gone a whoring from thy God. Thou hast loved a reward upon every corn floor. The floor and the winepress shall not feed them, and the new wine shall fail in her. They shall not dwell in the Lord's land. But Ephraim shall return to Egypt, and they shall eat unclean things in Assyria. They shall not offer wine offerings to the Lord, neither shall be pleasing unto him. Their sacrifices shall be unto them as the bread of mourners. All that eat thereof shall be polluted, for their bread, for their soul shall not come into the house of the Lord. What will we do? What will ye do in the solemn day and in the day of the feast of the Lord?
Okay, so now the Lord's telling Israel, rejoice not, because you know what? Because you like to play the whore, and you like to be on every floor and wine press and everything, you go a whoring from after your God. He says, you know what? You shall not dwell in the Lord's land. So he's telling Israel, you're not going to dwell in the land. Okay? Ephraim shall return to Egypt, and they shall eat unclean things in Assyria. And his wine, like the offerings that Israel wants to give the Lord, he's not going to accept that. Say, they shall not offer wine offerings unto the Lord, neither shall they be pleasing unto him. Their sacrifices shall be unto them as the bread of mourners. All that eat thereof shall be polluted, for their bread, for their soul shall not come into the house of the Lord. So the Lord is basically rejecting everything of Israel that they want to offer, that they want to do, not even allowing them to be in the land. All because of their whoredoms, all because of what they're doing. Okay? So, and what did we read? We read that the Lord was a jealous God, right? But the Lord, so far, all the stuff we read, it seems like he's had a lot of patience with Israel, but now he's fed up. You know, now he's like, I'm at a point where I'm going to cut you off, put you in another land that y'all don't even know about. I'm not accepting none of the sacrifices. You know what I mean? None of that. Like, you can forget about it. So, go ahead and read verse number 10.
I found Israel like grapes in the wilderness. I saw your fathers as the first ripe in the fig tree at her first time. But they went to Baal Peor and separated themselves unto the shame, and their abominations were according as they loved.
See, so the Lord's telling them, I found Israel like the grapes in the wilderness. I saw your fathers as first ripe in the fig tree at her first time. But then you just wanted to go over to Baal Peor and separated themselves unto that shame, you know. And the scripture that says, you know, iniquity has separated us from our God. And this is a perfect example. You know, we went and worshiped false gods, and it just kept farther separating us from our God. Okay, he said their abominations were according to as they love. So we just love doing abominations through all the spiritual whoredom. We're doing abominations and we're loving. You know what I mean? And it's separating us farther and farther from our Lord. You know, and with that being said, I got a couple more scripts. We're going to go over Deuteronomy chapter 28. And we're going to read what the Lord said he was going to do to us for our disobedience to him.
6 minutes on the cam. Okay. We got to be out of here in another 7 seconds. Get back up. Okay. I got you.
All right, so we're going to read Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 1 and 2, and then skip down to 14.
And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, and the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth, and all the blessings shall come on thee and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God.
Hold on. So actually go to, I'm sorry, not 14, but 15. Read 15. Skip down to 15 and read 15.
But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
So the Lord said in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 15, but it shall come to pass. He gives you all the blessings, you know, from 28, verse 1 all through 14, but he tells you the curse of disobedience in verse 15. If it shall come to pass that you will not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and do all his commandments and his statutes, which he commands you this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Okay? And part of those commandments are not serving other gods. Okay? Not bowing thyself down to them, not making any graven images. Okay? So because we broke that among any other commandments, and other commandments as well, we've been cursed. And we don't have time to get into all the curses, but you can read, you know, basically from 16, like down to like verse 68. Just all the curses in Deuteronomy chapter 28 that the Lord put upon Israel. Okay? So with that being said, I hope everyone here got some understanding today. And that's the end of the lesson. So, go ahead.